5 episodes of the miniseries titled Green with Evil. This details the origins of the original Green Ranger, Tommy Oliver, who is played by Jason David Frank, which I should note I have met on a few occasions. Our students, in analyzing this unit completely, were then tasked with completing our next major project in designing a new Power Ranger and Zord. For those of you who are not aware, Zords are colossal assault vehicles that the Power Rangers will use when the main villains such as Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed allow their monsters to grow. In doing this, our students were tasked with drawing and coloring in the new Ranger and Zord, and they're writing a 3-paragraph essay detailing the mythology surrounding the Ranger and the Zord. Is it from some type of mythology surrounding dinosaurs or jungle fury or something like that? And then specifics regarding their powers and their weapons. The other major area regarding international influences that our students analyzed focused on Dragon Ball, also known as Dragon Ball Z, or Kai, or GT. Specifically, students learned that this is a product just like Power Rangers that was brought over to the United States by a company called Funimation. They learned about the key aspects surrounding Dragon Ball, including the concept known as Kai, which is a type of power level, as well as the major heroes, villains, and species that occupy this franchise. They also learned of the concept known as the 7 Dragon Balls. When all 7 Dragon Balls are gathered together by a person, they will summon the eternal dragon Shenron, who will grant that individual one wish. For our next unit, students focused on the fascination surrounding video games. This is a type of industry that has been able to develop mythological characters that live in virtual worlds. And through the technology that we possess, players or individuals can interact with these digital characters in their own worlds. Such characters will include the Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, Link and Zelda, and Fox McCloud. In looking at the history surrounding Nintendo, students went back to actually the video game industry as a whole. Students went back to look at the early beginnings through the 1970s with such early consoles as the Magnavox Odyssey and the Atari. They then learned about the major rivalry that has existed between companies Nintendo, Sega, Sony, and Microsoft. In looking at the specific history surrounding Nintendo as a company, students learned about the major successes that have existed, ranging from the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, the GameCube, the Wii, and the various Game Boy products. To help understand and be able to articulate this unit in detail, students were then given the opportunity to analyze and view the film Tron Legacy. The reason we felt this film was relevant and necessary to view was because it would allow our students and help them theorize how they believe video games are going to continue to advance and evolve in the years to come. And then in regards to our last major unit, which focused on books and novels. We are living in a time when there has been an explosion of literacy that portrays these characters that live in these fantasy worlds and contain supernatural abilities and powers. The first major area we looked at was Harry Potter. Students focused on the history of J.K. Rowling in her creation of this universe. They also analyzed the main characters, including Hermione Granger, Albus Dumbledore, and Ronald Weasley. Students then critically thought about what they feel is the true conflict that is existing between Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort. Students also focused on thinking about the cultural impact that has existed for Harry Potter, ranging from 8 major motion pictures to the theme park, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, that exists now in Universal Orlando. In looking at the other area regarding books or novels, and taking into the accumulation of everything we have learned this year, students focused on The Lord of the Rings. Specifically, learning about the history of J.R. Tolkien, learning about the backstory that exists in The Hobbit, of what the true conflict is between the free people of Middle-earth and the Dark Lord Sauron. Our students were able to analyze and given the opportunity to watch the 3 films that make up the Lord of the Rings trilogy. However, the final project for the year, which required them to know this information and take everything into account, was where they were required to work in groups of 2 to 3 to construct an alternate ending to the Lord of the Rings, specifically the 3rd book, The Return of the King. Students could use anything that they've learned about from contemporary mythology throughout this year, putting a different character from a different story, film, and putting it into that alternate ending. And also, the only thing they would have to take into account was logic, meaning you have to explain to me, how did that person get from A to B? If they magically showed up, you need to be able to explain how, and more importantly, why. This completed our curriculum for this year. One of the things you may have noticed that we've relied very heavily upon, and goes back to the SEM model, is alternative assessments and project-based learning. The other thing you may have noticed is we do use a lot of influences from films. We watch and analyze a lot of films. But this is not a course where students just come, sit back, and watch a film. Each time we analyze a film, there is a task associated with it. They either have to complete some type of supplemental questionnaire sheet where they answer questions about the films, or they write a film review, or an argumentative essay about the film. Which film is darker? Which one do you think is better? Which one was most innovative? And then we also utilize alternative assessment through project-based learning, where students are allowed to work individually or work in groups to construct new types of products from the various units, whether it's designing a new droid, which this is the actual droid our students constructed. Here you see the pyramid-shaped droid that would serve the Empire, and then they also detailed the schematics of the droid, or designing a new extraterrestrial species, which our students did do, and then, or designing a new Power Ranger, or alternative ending to a long story. We make sure that at the same time this is an engaging course, we are consistently providing rigorous work for our students to complete to help demonstrate their understanding and articulation of this curriculum. This is not the first time we have taught contemporary mythology, and every year I am consistently thinking about how we can perfect this unit and advance it and take it into new directions. In regards to the next major steps that we are going to be implementing, as I said earlier, contemporary mythology is consistently evolving, and there are several ways the course is going to change. We're going to be implementing some new units. One of the units is going to focus on Disney. The reason next year we feel it is essential to focus on Disney is because we are living in a time now where Disney is becoming this powerhouse company that is able to acquire massive amounts of franchises and companies, including Lucasfilm. They're now acquiring 20th Century Fox, the Marvel products, Star Wars. So it's interesting to see what their goals are in the next coming years. Next year, we're also going to start seeing new developments take place in the theme parks. Specifically, they're opening a new Star Wars land in Hollywood Studios. And just last week, they debuted the new Toy Story World. The other major area we want to focus on for next year in regards to a new unit is science fiction. This is an area of rich literacy and articulation, helping students think about how science or how fiction is leading us to think about where in science we can go as a society. Specifically, space, robots, and also monsters. We also want to focus more in depth on current existing units. Specifically, one of the areas I would like to touch base more in depth is professional wrestling, because this has become a major phenomenon in recent years. Specifically, WWE. It's interesting to know the history of how this company developed, how specifically it has evolved over the last 30 to 40 years under the realm of Vince McMahon. And then also learn about the history of some of their most famous wrestlers, including Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. In addition, in helping other teachers teach this course, I also am interested in working in publishing something that could help other teachers bring this course to the forefront of their schools so that other students can learn about the different areas surrounding contemporary mythology. Thank you.